All right, so my friends, welcome. Karlov Manor is here, and we're going to start drafting it really, really soon. Before we do that, we're going to do our preview episode of Bronze Mythic where I go over all the archetypes in the set. So, of course, usually how it works is there's a signpost uncommon for each color pair. Kind of tells you what each color pair wants to do in Limited, and gives you a good idea of how you should be drafting each color pair worth of deck. So your blue-green deck usually will look different than your red-white deck, and so on and so forth. So we're going to go over all of that. The signposts uncommons in this set are a little nebulous, honestly, as are the themes in general. So we're also going to discuss which archetypes seem like hard archetypes, where it's like, red-white artifacts, you want every artifact ever, or a looser archetype, like, say, Descend from the last set, where, like, you want a few Descend cards and stuff, but, like, you're not, like, it's not like an all-in sort of thing, or like a Delve thing, where there's diminishing returns. You're just kind of like a good card deck with a small theme. So how tight or loose the theme is will be a thing as well. Let's get right into it with red-green, and the red-green signpost uncommon is Tin Street Gossip. This is a 4-mana 4/4 Vigilance, which is obviously just a good stat line in general, and it adds a red and a green mana only to cast face-down spells or turn creatures face-up.
I suppose it could be almost anybody.
So Disguise is our new morph mechanic in this set, where you play morphs, but they have Ward 2, and red green's kind of all about that, right? So red green has this is the signpost uncommon. We see cards like Riftburst Hellion, which is like a really big disguise card. Honestly, not particularly exciting unless you have some sort of extra mana. There's also the Mana Dork Tunnel Tipster, which is a 1/1 for 2 that gets bigger every morph you play, and then gives you extra mana for your morphs as well. So kind of like a looser theme, where we're just, you're playing morphs anyway in probably all of your decks regardless, but they'll be a little bit better in the red-green deck. So kind of a loose theme, red-green, morphy stuff, and then some crossover also, especially in Silencia as well. But obviously some very good cards on rate anyway, Tin Street Gossip. But a little bit of a looser theme, just some extra bonuses for playing face-down cards, and then so on and so forth. So we go to green-white, pretty similar. We have a Sumala Sentry, which is a 2-mana 1/3 reach. And for a face-down permanent you control is turned face-up, put a +1 counter on this, and a +1 counter on that creature. So a very powerful effect if you're unmorphing. It's important to note that the morphs in this set are kind of different than they were in Khans of Tarkir. Khans of Tarkir had a lot of size morphs, where it was just like, 5 mana, flip it up, it's a 4/5, or a 5/5, or a 4/4, or a 5/5 trample, or a whatever, just the sizing was the important part. And the morph rule exists, for those that don't know, where unlike Onslaught back in the day, which is a lot cooler in my opinion, honestly, but whatever, if you ever get involved in morph-on-morph combat, if your opponent has 4 or less mana, they can never blow you out. So you will never lose the combat. When your opponent has 5 or more mana, then they can flip a thing that's larger on your 2/2 and then win the combat. So you kind of just know, no matter what happens, if they have 5 or more mana, they can beat you in combat with their morph on a 2/2. If they have 4 or less, they can't. Kind of boring, honestly, but whatever. But in Khans of Tarkir, a lot of the morphs were just size morphs. There were just a bunch of things that unmorphed for 5 and 6 that were huge. There's a lot less of that in this set. There's a lot more morphs that kind of do something. It turns face up and a thing happens. You draw a card or make some tokens or whatever. So there aren't nearly as many size morphs, which makes a card like this a lot better, because a lot of your morphs are turning up for 1 mana or 2 mana. Therefore, it's cheaper and easier to use. So this card's pretty great. You can see Crowd Control Warden here is one of the size morphs in this set. Every color pair has a common hybrid morph or disguise creature, where it costs, the two colors, but it morphs for the 2 hybrids. You can play it in a red-green deck or a white-blue deck, which makes them pretty early picks. There are one of these for each color pair. A lot of them are better than others. This is one of the worst ones, honestly. This is just a big idiot. But it is a very, very big idiot, honestly. It's a card that will turn off and be a 7/7 or an 8/8. So while it is a size card, it's a pretty good one at that, which is nice. And but kind of gives you an idea of what this green-white deck's about. We also see cards like Museum Nightwatch. So again, this is the more common style of morph in the set, where it is a cheap disguise cost, but when it turns up, something happens, right? So this is a 3/2 for 4. When it dies, make it 2/2, which is pretty cool. Makes it detective.
World's greatest detectives!
And this is a good fine card just to cast, but also a cool card to morph as well. But again, when you unmorph it, you're not trying to win the combat. You're trying to get some cool effect. So it plays pretty well with that. Up next is Boros, and Boros is the battalion theme for all you old schoolers out there. Battalion was an ability in some old Ravnica set where if you attack with 3 or more things, it turns on. It's in this set, but not written as such. So we have a Meddling Youths here, which is a 5 mana 4/5 haste. Pretty good stat line. Or if you attack with 3 more creatures, investigate. This card's obviously excellent. 4/5 haste for 5 would be fine anyway. But investigating is huge.
Oh, I just started getting a clue.
Getting a clue token is phenomenal. Clue tokens are really, really, really good and limited. They might seem a little slow. They're not. They're awesome. Clues are phenomenal. And again, Boros is kind of your typical aggro deck looking to go wide. We got Dogwalker here. Dogwalker is the hybrid morph card in Boros. This card's really good. 2 mana for a 3/1 vigilance. It's just like fine as a 2-drop. But if you morph it, thumbs up for 2 and get 2 dog tokens, which is perfect for the go wide strategy. So great common here. And again, you can play this in your blue-white deck or your red-green deck, but it's a little better in your Boros deck, which is pretty cool. You see also cards like Seasoned Consultant, 2 mana for a 1/3. Attack with this and 2 creatures, it's a 3/3. Just like your kind of average Boros aggro fare. A little more thematic though. This is a little more of a tighter theme where you kind of want to have a lot of aggro stuff. And then you can play cards like the Pump All Your Stuff +2/+1 and so on and so forth. The blue-white theme is Detectives.
Hello, sir. South Park Junior Detectives. We're wondering if you have any crimes you need solved for $1.
3 mana for a 3/3 Lord for your detectives. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, a detective can't be blocked, which is very easy to do with clues and stuff. Blue-white seems really, really good in this set. There's just a lot of really good commons in blue-white. A lot of the good cards are detectives. There isn't really like that many things that care about detectives, but there are some pretty good ones. So we got, this is a Lord, obviously. We got one of the best white commons here. I call this card my bomb and common in white in my set review. If you missed that, go watch it on the main channel. I did a full set review. Every card in the set for Constructed Unlimited, go watch that. But Inside Source here is a 3 mana for a 1/1. When it ETBs, you make a 2/2 detective token. So it's a 2/2 and a 1/1 for 3, which is always a good limited card. And you can pay 3 and pump a detective +2/+7 vigilance until end of turn as a sorcery. This is a really good card, right? 2/2 and a 1/1 for 3 is just like a solid stat line anyway. And then late in the game, you can just turn your 2/2s into 4/2s, just get in every turn, which is awesome. So that's a great card. Thinking Cap is also a good equipment here. It equips for a very clunky 3 on non-detectives, but on detectives, this card's great. This card's a phenomenal equipment, really, really good. So aside from, there aren't like that many detective-y cards that you want to build around, but those two are pretty big ones. So a little more of a tight theme. Very, very good stuff though. Blue-red is kind of like the artifact sacrifice color. You see here in Gleaming Gear Drake, 2 mana for a 1/1 flyer. Whenever ETBs, you investigate for a clue.
Why don't you start investigating over here?
And whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Gleaming Gear Drake. So this card by itself is just like 2 mana and 2 mana for a 2/2 flyer which draws a card, which is phenomenal. And it's very, very easy to do. Pumping up other things, just clues, sacrifice, and then many other things as well. Cards like Furtive Courier, which is a 3 mana for a 3/2. Sack an artifact, it becomes unblockable, and it just loots, which is kind of cool as well. Cornered Crook, pretty awesome 5-drop. It's a 5/4 ETB, sack an artifact, and bolt stuff. There's things that make artifact tokens as well, Doppler tokens, so on and so forth. So pretty tight theme here in blue-red. Where you want to have a lot of artifacts in play, so you can sacrifice them for value. But a lot of these cards are just good, right? Like Corner Crook is just a good card. As long as you have 8 artifact sacrifice, it's going to be good. And just super solid. Rakdos is all about suspects.
Suspect is hatless. Repeat, hatless.
2 mana for a 2/2. When it ETBs, you suspect up to 1 creature that you control. Now, when you suspect a creature, it gets menace and it can't block. So some things allow you to target your own stuff. Some things allow you to target your opponent's stuff, so they can't block or you get menace. And this one has the ability here, 5 mana, sack a suspect creature, and you deal -5/-5 to a creature. So suspect some little 1/1, and then sack it to kill a big thing. A lot of the value here is front-loaded, and this is a 2/2 with some pretty good, with a decent stat line, because the ability is very expensive. But we see here Clandestine Meddler, which is 3 mana for a 3/2. When it ETBs, suspect a creature that you control. Whenever 1 or more suspects attack, you get to surveil 1. So get a little bonus for having that as well. Deadly Complications, similar thing. It's a murder. You should kill a creature. But you can also put a counter on a suspected creature that you control and unsuspect it, which is pretty cool. So kind of using it as a resource on both sides, aside from just the can't block and the menace thing as well. So that's Rakdos. It seems a little like medium thematic. Suspect is a weird one because it's kind of weird. It plays at both sides of the ball, which is kind of interesting. So Black-White's mechanic is all about creatures entering the battlefield with 2 or less power, which there are a lot of, obviously. And when they do, it triggers. This is a 2/4 flyer for 4, good stat line. Whenever a creature 2 or less power, 2 or less ETBs under your control, you drain for 1, which is excellent. And then with 7 mana, you can mana sink in and give all your things 2 or less death touch and lifelink. So great card. Just a really, really powerful effect, honestly, on a super solid body. You got Market Watch Phantom, kind of your classic good 2-drop these days in Modern Day Limited, 2 mana for a 2/2. Whenever a creature power 2 or less ETBs, it's like, we call it like a weenie fall or something like that. Like, whenever you weenie fall, it gets flying. Cards like Slimy Dual Leech, 4 mana for a 2/4. Beginning of combat, if you've weenie falled, it gets +1/+0 and Death Touch, which is a really good stat line also. So, a little more of a tight theme, because you obviously want to have all your things trigger if possible. But pretty cool. Blue-black is kind of a controlling color pair, based around kind of like clues and recursion. We see Curious Cadaver here, which is a 4 mana 3/1 flyer. Whenever you sack a clue, this goes from your graveyard to your hand. So it's slow, but really grindy and powerful. So again, kind of like a lighter theme where you're just like playing good blue-black cards that block and kill things. And then you just make some clues, draw some cards, make some trades. This thing keeps coming back. You can block with it, which is awesome. We see cards like Cold Case Cracker, which again, just a good rate card. 3/3 flyer for 4. When it dies, investigate. Awesome. Play it, block with it, trade, can attack also. Great stat line. Just really, really good common. I'll say best blue common, I think, for sure. We got Murder, some removal spells. So a little more of like just a control deck. You know, kind of like your average control deck in Limited that has this sort of like clue theme a little bit as well, but a lighter theme for sure. Blue-green is all about collecting evidence.
Evidence? There's supposed to be evidence?
2 mana for a 2/2. Being in combat your turn, you collect evidence 4. Whenever you collect evidence, you investigate. This is kind of a lighter theme, and there is some self-mill stuff. But collect evidence is sort of like Delve, where it has diminishing returns, where if like all of your cards collect evidence, you'll never be able to use all of them because there aren't that many cards in your graveyard, you know? So it's kind of like more of like a spice theme than anything else. But this card's pretty good. Just a 2/2 for 2 with some upside. If you ever investigate once, this card's phenomenal, and it's not hard to do that at all. The kind of 2-drop you often play later. You have cards like Crime Stopper Sprite, which is comes into play. Collect Evidence 6, which is a lot, but pretty powerful effect. They can stun a thing, which is cool. Also, Topiary Panther is cool on the other side of the ball, where this is a great card to enable your collect evidence. So you don't want to be enabling it too hard, but this card does that pretty well, and it's also just a reasonable card. And it's not like Delve. When you see Collect Evidence 6, don't think Delve 6. Delve 6 is a ton. Collect Evidence 6 is often just 1 or 2 cards. It's not hard to do at all. So it's pretty easy to do in Limited. You know, you can't have all your cards say Collect Evidence 6, but it's doable for sure. Green-black is of a similar graveyard theme. We see Insidious Roots here, a card we just saw on my 10 New Brews, which is a lot of fun, really powerful card. And this card cares about cards leaving the graveyard. So all your tokens add tap for mana. Whenever a creature card leaves your graveyard, make an 0/1 plant and put a counter on all your plants. So this card plays very well with Collect Evidence, obviously, because you can just keep doing that over and over again. There are some cards like Leering Onlooker, which naturally just leave the graveyard. 4 mana, exile this, make 2 bats, and hopefully get an effect for it as well. Also good with self-mill stuff. We got Fester Leech, same idea with self-mill, where you're just like, you attack, you mill some stuff, start to collect evidence, so on and so forth. So a little more lean in green-black as far as like thematic stuff, but like, again, you can't go too hard on it. It doesn't really work. And that's it. That's all for Archetypes. So I played the pre-release of this set. I've not drafted yet. Obviously, my first draft will be episode 1 of Bronze and Mythic, which is happening really, really soon. That'll be tomorrow for you folks on stream, and on YouTube it'll be on Friday. Initial impressions are it's a pretty powerful format. Kind of similar to March of the Machine in that, like, because of a new pack structure, there are more average rares per pack, and the packs are just like pretty good, and the list cards do that also. So a lot of power level, but it's not like everyone's playing Grizzly Bears and I play a Baneslayer and just beat you. It's like all the cards are pretty good. So it's a pretty even power level overall. It's just a little higher on average, which is pretty fun. The games seem kind of grindy and slow, which is fun also. So it's a cool format. We're going to see how it looks. Obviously, episode 1 of Bronze Mythic is going to be tomorrow morning. Pumped for it. You should be too. Look for that. Let me know your thoughts on this breakdown. If you enjoyed this, obviously on stream or on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you for episode 1. Let's do this, all right? Let's go.